200 million of them, give or take 100 million, sold in 3 years. The best-selling toy in human history. So here's the first question, and you get to guess. How much was the inventor paid for letting his name go on the box? Go on, pick a number. Millions? A cut of every sale? $1. Not $1 per cube. $1. Once. It's in a contract signed on the 10th of January, 1980. The Hungarian text spells it out. Jelképesen egy dollárért. Symbolically, for $1. His name was Ernő Rubik. He was 35. He taught architecture in Budapest, and while the cube went out the factory gates by the million, he lived on his teaching salary. $200 a month at the state's own exchange rate. The average Hungarian that year made about 126. So on paper, he was doing well. And at first, the box didn't even use the name he'd signed away. It was called the Magic Cube. Then the Americans went looking for a word they could own. A description isn't a brand, a surname is. Which leaves the obvious question. If he wasn't taking the money, who was? Start with the paperwork. He did have a patent, Hungarian, filed in January 1975, granted the 28th of March, 1977. So, second question. How much time does an inventor get to extend a patent from one country to the rest of the world? Most people say years. It's a treaty older than the Eiffel Tower. There must be time. A year. 365 days. 1 year from that first filing. That's the whole window. A cube can be solved in 4 seconds, and a year wasn't enough. Why he missed it, nobody knows. Not the lawyers, not the biographers, and not the man himself in anything he said about it since. The documents just stop. What we do know is how a Hungarian patent firm sums it up.
One of the weakest patents in the world.
Patent attorneys are not usually that generous with their compliments. He did get an American patent eventually. The 29th of March, 1983. 4,378,116. His name on it. The full weight of the United States Patent Office. Third question, and this one you'll get wrong. What's in the drawing? Our cube, obviously. 18 pieces, 3 by 3 by 2. They gave him a patent on the cube, just a different cube. So, a Hungarian patent that stops at the Hungarian border, and an American patent whose drawing shows something else. Somebody, though, was signing the real deals. On the 17th of September, 1979, Ideal Toy of New York signed for the Magic Cube. Minimum 500,000 units, option on 500,000 more. They signed it with a company called Konsumex, state-owned, one of the trading monopolies that handled Hungary's exports. Ernő Rubik is not a party to that contract. Not a signature, not a clause. Just the name they'd print on the box later. And this is where most people stop, because the story finishes itself. Communist state, state company, state takes the money. You've already written the ending in your head. Let me help it along. In 1981, Hungary's National Bank ruled on who was allowed to hold foreign currency. A private citizen could open a hard currency account, but only on a short list of grounds. One of them, a fee for intellectual work, with documents, with proof of where the money came from, and with the state approving what it could be spent on. The legal paper describing all this has a phrase for the people it applied to. A small, privileged layer of the population. The privilege being permission to ask. So there it is. The state owned the product, the export, the currency, and the shopping list. Except that isn't the ending. In 2022, the New York Times went looking for the truth about Rubik's money. 2 legends were waiting. 1, he became the richest man in Hungary. 2, his partners robbed him blind. Neither was true, not partly, neither. That leaves a hole exactly where the money should be. 200 million cubes went out the door. Somebody was counting. They were. In Budapest, in a cooperative called Politoys. They made the Hungarian ones, and theirs are the only numbers anybody bothered to write down. 1977, 12,000 cubes. 1980, 4 million. 1981, 7 million. To hit that, the workers were taking 50 to 90 hours of overtime. A month. While you've been listening to this, another 60 cubes came off that line in Budapest, roughly. Counting them properly was nobody's job, and the state helped, the way states help. The National Bank approved a development loan. It was issued on the 30th of December. It had to be spent by 10 o'clock the next morning. There was a plan. There was no time. Meanwhile, in America, the cube sold for about $8. The answer sold separately. Ideal would mail you the solution for $2. The bookshops had paperbacks explaining the same thing for $1.95. 5 cents cheaper than the answer sold by the people who sold you the problem. Then, in the middle of 1981, Politoys did something you'll want to hear twice. Cheap copies were flooding the market. Hong Kong, Taiwan, everywhere. Ideal was suing distributors by the dozen. And the Hungarians, the people who made the real one, went out and bought 1.6 million of the fakes, then sold and exported most of them, as originals. If you can't beat the counterfeiters, buy their stock. Now the shipment. Early 1982. 1 million cubes had gone to the United States. Before I give you the number that came back, take a guess. A bad batch happens. Everyone's rushing, quality slips, you eat a few thousand. 822,000 came back. Out of 1 million. Rejects. 82% of everything they shipped on a boat going the wrong way. And the Hungarian record puts one sentence about it in brackets, almost apologetically. Some believe those were the same Far Eastern fakes the factory had bought the year before. If that's right, Hungary bought the counterfeits of its own toy, sold them to America under its own name, and America sent them home. Weeks later, on the 20th of February, 1982, the Hungarian state declared an information blackout on news about the cube. Not a war, not the economy, a toy. What's left is receipts. That April, Ideal Toy was sold to CBS for $58 million, and not a round number, $14.85 a share. The company had been losing money since before the cube ever crashed. The timing, it has to be said, was ideal. That summer, the Budapest warehouse held 550 million forint of stock nobody wanted. By October, the New York Times called the craze over. CBS sold the brand on. So did the next owner, and the one after that. And the man on the box? The internet still has the cube selling for $1.99. The sticker said 8. That is roughly the standard of everything the internet knows about this man's money. He answered the question himself in 2024. 44 years and one collapsed country later.
It brought a lot of money, but I am not a billionaire.
44 years, 200 million cubes in 3 years, 4 corporate owners, a co-op buried in unsold stock, and a government that censored the news about a puzzle. And the only sum in the whole story that anybody can put next to his name is the one written on that contract from January 1980. $1.